So what exactly is a smart LED? Well, there's actually quite a few different kinds. The most common one that I hear people talk about are actually these. And I've used these kind of LEDs in many of the Learn to Solder pins that I've created throughout the years. And I'll show you what they are. You hook up a battery to them and they automatically cycle through a bunch of different colors. They're not exactly smart. What I'm talking about are LEDs like these, or even these. And what these are individually addressable RGB LEDs. Sometimes they even have white on them. So you have a white, then a red, a green, and a blue. And with the use of a microcontroller, I can control that color very specifically. I can blend the colors. I can make them change color fairly fast and do some really cool things with them. So we're going to go ahead and use this type of smart LED. These are called NeoPixels. But what exactly is a NeoPixel? Well, let's take a look. First of all, I got these from Adafruit, and if we go over to their website and search for NeoPixel, we can see there's lots of different kinds. They come in all different shapes, sizes. You can buy them that look almost like regular LEDs. You can buy all these little kind of buttons. Here's an interesting shield with a nice example of what you can do with them. See, they can make these beautiful rainbow colors. And what's nice about them is it uses very few pins on your Arduino to control. So speaking of which, let's take a look at that. So there is a tutorial page, and it includes all the libraries. You're going to need a library to control these NeoPixels. Now, I said I'm going to tell you what a NeoPixel is. A NeoPixel is a brand name for, right here, a WS2812 integrated light source, or NeoPixel. Now you can see why they rebranded it. It's a much cooler name. And how you hook them up is pretty interesting. They use a one-wire communication system. So you really only need one wire from your Arduino, one pin, and a power and a ground. So I have these examples right here, 3 in a row that we're going to hook up and take a look at. And if you look very closely on one side, right here, I can see it says positive. So this first one, I will put my red wire into the positive in. The next one down is ground, and the next one is the signal, that one wire signal. So I'll use green in this case. And what's really neat about these is I can daisy chain these together. So if I look on the other side of the circuit board, the positive is in the top. And if I just bring the positive over here, now what most people will do is actually flip these around to do it. But I'm going to actually leave them in the same orientation so you get a good idea of how this is working. So positive to positive, negative to negative, and signal to signal. Oh, that popped out. I know there's going to be lots of wires. It's not the best way to wire it up, but I think it shows you exactly how it works. So again, positive to positive, negative to negative, and signal out to signal in, right there. I think this is a really good illustration of how these work, right? So I have my positive, negative, and signal going in, and then right on the other side, positive, negative, and signal going out to the in, to the out, to the in. And that's how you would wire 3 NeoPixels together. Now let's take a look at the code. So first thing you're going to need to do is install the libraries, and there's links right here that show you where the libraries are. Or if you go into your Arduino software, you can, and let me hide this, you can go into include. I'm going to manage them, and I use NeoPixels a lot, so I actually have it installed already, but I'll show you where they are. Very easy to find. I'll go right here and do Neo. And the first one that comes up is the Adafruit NeoMatrix. We'll look at that in a minute. The one you're going to want is the NeoPixel by Adafruit right here, and it says installed. If it doesn't say install, you can click on install, and that's it. Very simple to install, and that'll give you some examples. Since mine's already installed, let's go ahead and look at the example. I scroll down here, and I see NeoPixel, and we'll just do simple. And if I look at this sketch, we can see here's the library. We're defining what kind of microcontroller we're looking at, the number of pixels. Here we go. Which pin is the Arduino connected to the NeoPixel? Define pin 6. So that's our data pin. So let's go ahead and take this and put it into pin 6. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and connect ground and 5 volt. That's all we need to do to hook this up. Now back to the code. Number of NeoPixels, I'm using 3. And here's your delay for the color changing. And if we go down here, you can see there's some extra code here if you're using a Trinket, because what's really interesting about these smart pixels is you don't even need something as powerful as an Arduino with all the extra RAM and different things that are on the board. You can power it with very, very simple things like a Trinket, like an ATtiny. And then the loop. And you can see what's happening here is it's going to do a loop depending on how many pixels you have, and it's going to set the color. If we look very quickly in the code right here, we can see that it's going to set it to a moderate green. So it's an RGB, 0, 150, 0. The red value, the green value, and the blue value. And then you literally write pixel show, and it shows those colors. It's really, really cool. Let's go ahead and upload this. So I'll plug my Arduino in. I'll make sure that my Genuino's there. And my port should show up pretty soon. There's my port, okay. And I'll click upload. There we go. Took a second for that just to refresh. And you remember that code said it was a nice medium green. And guess what? It's a nice medium green. What if we go ahead and change it to 255 and 00 and upload that code? That should give me an intense red. So it's uploading. 1, 2, 3. It's a pretty intense red. Now here's where you can have some fun. What if I did 100, 200, and 100? I have no idea what RGB value that will be. We'll find out in a second. Uploading, and boom. It's almost white, but it has a little bit of a tint of blue to it, I think. So that's a great example of how easy it is to work with these. Now, it's pretty simple, right? 3 pixels. But imagine you had a project where you had 30, 40, 50, hundreds of these. Or you had strips like this, where you can see each one of these individual white squares is a NeoPixel. And you can do beautiful rainbow patterns and control these. You should know, though, that there are power requirements. This is going to use up a lot of power. So you're going to have to hook this up with an external power supply. We're not going to look at this in this video, but I just wanted to show you that I had a strip and what they kind of look like and see how flexible they are. Very cool. What we will look at, though, is very quickly the NeoPixel Shield here, because this is another very powerful feature of NeoPixels. If I were to go ahead and unplug all that and pop this shield on, when you get this as a kit, you actually don't have to solder these on, which is really nice. They're already soldered. You just have to solder these header pins in. Get these in properly. That looks pretty good. And that's sitting on top there. You'll notice there's a screw terminal because these actually use up a lot of power compared to a USB port. Speaking of which, I'll put this in here, but I'm going to leave it unplugged for a second. And I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use a matrix like this. So let's take a look at working with the matrix. Now, the first thing you should note is you need 2 more libraries. One of them is the Adafruit NeoMatrix, and the other one is the GFX. The Adafruit NeoPixel Matrix one is the library that controls all these and knows where the LEDs are and how to properly send the data to them to control them. The GFX is actually what we're going to use for scrolling type by or creating images or anything like that. So those libraries are also very easy to install. You can go into Include Library, and if I do a search for GFX, you can see it's right here. Mine's installed already. And the other one is, if I do Neo, the first one that comes up is the NeoMatrix, and you can see mine's installed as well. Once you install those 2, you will have some examples that you can open up. Here's the examples. and we go to NeoMatrix, and we'll do the matrix test. And we'll make sure that the board is set right. Let me plug it in really quick. And you can see, kind of interesting, right? That's pixel 1, 2, 3. That's the code that's setting. So if I really want to control more, I just add a few more to that list, and I can tell each one of these individually what color I want them to be. But now we're going to go to the matrix. Let's go ahead and upload this before we do anything. And it's still compiling. It's going to take a little while. You can't see the LEDs to make sure that it's communicating. Now it says it's uploading. This hopefully will disappear. Oh, there we go. And it's scrolling a message. If I take a piece of paper, probably show up a little better. You can see it saying howdy. And it's doing it in all different colors. And if we look at the code, I don't need to go through the whole thing because it's very well commented out. It tells you all the different parameters, which what's most important is the width of pixels, how many width and how many in height. And then basically the scroll is a text wrap with some color changes and a few other fairly simple things to figure out. And down here is howdy. If I just change that to hello, it's compiling. Now it says it's uploading. HELLO. Red, green, and blue. So think about all the things you can do with this. You can use this to show all sorts of data. You can actually create some fairly simple animations. You can create amazing rainbows and bright lights. But you do have to remember, if I'm going to light up all these, especially if I light them up with white and then go right to blue and have 100% coverage at 100% luminosity, I'm going to need an external power supply. I'm not going to be able to run that off a USB. But in your prototype, you're probably not running it off a USB, so it shouldn't be a problem. And that's basically an overview of the NeoPixels or Smart Pixels. They are really, really fun, and even if you don't need them for your prototype right now, you should pick some up and have them in your toolbox, because at some point you'll be very happy that you have them.